So I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Teradata, and I've had that role for now over 22 years when my MIT startup company was acquired by Teradata way back then. And I got put into the CTO role as part of the team that eventually took Teradata public onto the New York Stock Exchange. So it was my third company to take public, and it was very exciting times, and it's even more exciting now with all the growth going on in the cloud and machine learning becoming really very important, so lots of fun stuff going on. Well, there are a number of interesting things that have gone on. One thing that I think is really critical is this evolution that companies make in using data, kind of starting out using what I would call descriptive analytics, reporting, drill down dashboards, and so on. And there's certainly value to that, and regulators require a lot of that, especially in financial services and some other industries. But it really starts getting interesting when you use the data to do prediction. So not just what happened yesterday, but what's going to happen tomorrow and a week from now and 30 days from now. And not just prediction, but prescription. What action should I take in order to optimize the outcomes with my customers, with my supply chain, and so on? And when you start getting into predictive and prescriptive analytics, now you start using exciting stuff like machine learning and deep learning, and really pushing the technology boundaries a little bit further than just running SQL queries from a BI tool. And for me, that's very exciting to see the value creation from using data in this way. I would say that the shocks to the supply chain over the last 2 years really help differentiate the people that are sophisticated using data and those that aren't. Because the ones that are sophisticated, they were able to use the data to figure out what should the plan be. What are we going to do in this new normal that's being created, and make much more accurate forecast of what's going to happen and what actions to take and so on. Whereas the people that didn't have data and didn't have sophistication, they were just praying and waiting for the shocks to end. And, at the beginning of COVID, people thought, 6 weeks, it'll be over. And, 2.5 years later, we're still sort of in the midst of dealing with it. Maybe tailing off now, but you still see the supply chain shocks. And it's not just COVID, there's geopolitical disruption going on, all kinds of things. And the people with data and the people that know how to use data are being much more successful than the people who aren't. Well, I think those will still be trends, because although many companies are talking about it, there's a big difference between talking about it and doing it. The other thing that is coming into play is cloud. With cloud, we can innovate much more effectively, right? You can be much more agile. You can try new things. If it doesn't work, it's okay. You shut it down, the cost goes away. Moving from a CapEx model of on-prem deployment to a cloud model, just changes night and day, the innovation space. People talk about moving to cloud because it's going to save money, and saving money is always good. That's fine. But the real reason is innovation, accelerating innovation. And I've been very encouraged, in recent discussions within Pakistan with the regulators. They're starting to open up to the idea of cloud, because, when cloud first started coming into the scene, it's like, well, no, it's a little cautious, protecting the data and so on, and sovereignty and all those things, clearly very important. But now we're starting to see some light in that, to say, well, okay, so for production, people are still more comfortable on-prem, quite honestly, but you're starting to see test and development being deployed in the cloud. And of course, a lot of innovation is in the test and development and data labs and those kinds of things. And at Teradata, we've really pivoted to the cloud for especially those innovative uses of data. So this is very good for us to work with our customers in Pakistan and helping them on that journey. I've been coming to Pakistan for more than 20 years now. So, we were here at the beginning of the analytics revolution within Pakistan, and I'm starting to see this, this evolution from descriptive to predictive and prescriptive. So that's definitely happening, and it's been happening for a while. That's not a new thing within Pakistan. I think the cloud is the new and emerging thing. And this is a convergence of, commercial companies and chief data officers getting excited about cloud and innovation, but also the regulators maturing and they're thinking about the cloud. Because in the beginning it was, well, maybe if we ignore it, it'll go away. But it hasn't gone away. And now I think there's more of an embracing rather than a fear of it. It's cautious, which I understand, and in many marketplaces, particularly in financial services and healthcare and government kinds of uses of data, you want to be cautious with that. And I think that starting with innovation, with test and development kinds of things, this is the right place to start, and then you use that as a stepping stone to go further. I think an interesting evolution that's happened is, as you pointed out, a lot of organizations, they talk about data as an asset. And actually, I think that's the wrong mindset. Because data as an asset, people want to accumulate data. They think there's value in having more data. We put it in a warehouse. We count how many bytes we have. And the size of the data warehouse is a good measure of cost. It's not a good measure of value. And so I like to think of data as a product, not as an asset. And the job of a product is to be consumed and to provide value to the consumers of that data. It's a different kind of mindset. And, so data as an asset is one of my pet peeves as a phrase. Another pet peeve is when people talk about, data is the oil of the 21st century. I hate this phrase. I think it originally came from an article in The Economist. And it's annoying to me because data is way better than oil. Oil is use once, burn it, pollute the atmosphere, and then it's done. And I think in 10 years, oil is not going to be an important resource. Data is much better. The more you use data, the better it gets. It's a completely sustainable, renewable resource. In 10 years, it is going to be the top thing that companies care about. Not just companies, governments, companies, anybody making decisions. Data is the thing. And so data is way better than oil. I think sustainability is a big, big topic. It's probably the biggest topic in the Nordics and in Germany. They're very ahead in the thinking in those areas. I would say in the US, we're quite frankly a little bit behind. Pakistan's probably in the middle between the US and the Nordics. And my view is that transparency through use of data is the key to good sustainability. There's a management guru who's no longer with us, but from Austria, a guy named Peter Drucker. And he has a famous quote I like to repeat, that you can't manage what you don't measure. Meaning if you don't have data, you don't have visibility, you can't do anything about it. And it's interesting, we're working with companies now that in the past, they use data to do, for example, activity-based costing to understand, their revenue and their cost and profitability. And they built these very sophisticated costing models, counting rupees or dollars or euros or whatever. Now we're seeing a shift and they're taking those models and instead of counting cost in rupees, they're counting cost in carbon footprint. And you can use a lot of the same framework for activity-based costing and then just translate. So we work with a very large international airline based in Europe to do this kind of thing. We work with a lot of logistics company and not just the direct carbon footprint, but scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3. Right? And part of scope 3, by the way, is how efficiently are you using the resources for your machine learning in the cloud. And, I think that sometimes some of the, I'll say, unsophisticated or newbie vendors are very sloppy with elasticity. So elasticity is a beautiful thing in the cloud, but if you're sloppy with it and you use resources inefficiently, not only you're driving up the cost of whoever the consumer is, you're also driving up the carbon footprint. So at Teradata, we make a big deal encouraging our customers to put in their RFPs, what is the carbon footprint of that solution? And so yes, you want the best value, the lowest cost for the value that you're getting, but you also want the lowest carbon footprint. So we need to look at, how you create, profitable, sustainable business models. And sustainable is economically sustainable, but also ecologically sustainable. And if we start building models together that look at both of those together, it's very powerful. So for example, there's a European bank that we're working with and using these models and machine learning to optimize their loan portfolio so they can in part be influenced by, are they encouraging sustainable business through their loan portfolio, or are they encouraging non-sustainable business? And it's changing the way they think, and this is really good for all of us in the world. I would say that one of the key trends, or I'll call it a tagline, is open and connected. No one technology solves all the interesting problems. And so being open and connected means that you're connecting across multiple file systems, multiple technologies, open source as well as third-party software. And so this interoperability of the ecosystem is very, very important. And this means that you might be working across on-prem and cloud at the same time, for example, which is an important capability as people are transitioning to the cloud. So if I'm doing test and dev in the cloud, but I'm deploying on-prem, obviously you need a multi-cloud and hybrid cloud type of capability. Open and connected also means how we partner with people. So Teradata has kind of, I would say, opened up we have a CEO who's relatively new to the company. Our previous CEO had retired, then we went through sort of some transition time, and the new CEO, he's driving us, to the cloud and to open partnerships. And this is very powerful. So rather than being, very, I'll say, isolationist, we become, very, very open in working with partners and resellers and so on, including in Pakistan, but really all over the world. Well, I always enjoy coming to Pakistan, when many companies were, doing a, pure outsourcing to India. Myself and some of the original people in Teradata Pakistan formed this idea of the Global Development Center, being based in Pakistan. And I'm going to be spending some time in Islamabad working with that team and doing reviews and so on. But I must say that one of my favorite things in Pakistan is to go into the mountains. So we have this group of people, some of whom from Teradata, some from customers, and we do this trekking into the northern area. We go different places every year, and it's just absolutely beautiful. The glacial lakes and the amazing mountains and the camaraderie of the people. We do hiking. We cook and camp. This is not hotel trekking. This is with tents and in really the raw nature, and it's absolutely beautiful and unspoiled in Pakistan. And I'm really happy to be back into the mountains after 2 years of absence because of the COVID restrictions.